What is going on, everybody? It is June 1st. I'm James Money with Covert Crop Organics. What we're going to do is we're going to go over this, we're going to give a brief description of what we cover in our Zoom classes. We've been doing a few of these live, and sometimes they get stretched out longer than they need to be. So what we're going to try to do is put it in a, what we're going to do is put it in a digital format to where we can have a link to where people can follow along, and then we can either stop between segments, or I don't know, we got to figure it out so we can do have time for a Q&A. But what we're going to go through, we're going to go for, of course, this is for the for the medical grower, the tent grower, the indoor grower. This is not, we do not go into outdoor in this class. But what we're going to cover is the amended bag soils versus making your own, and also the differences in the commercial and in some of the more popular commercial bag soils. They do share a few things together, and each one of them has a different thing, a plus or minus that makes them stand out. And also we're going to talk about sphagnum peat moss versus coco coir and the alternatives to it, like pit moss, and basically go through some soil recipes to help get you going and help get you started. Secondly, we'll be going into environment. Dialing in your environment is a big part of, if you don't have that dialed in, your plant's not going to uptake, and it's not going to perform properly, and it's not going to work well for you. So we're going to go into equipment. We're going to go into every little thing you need. We're going to look into the differences in lighting systems. Both of them have their pros and cons, and you got to consider what your power consumption is before you even purchase the light. But we're going to go into all that stuff. I don't want to go into too much detail here. And of course, the differences in tents and building your own rooms, walk-in closets, etc. And then of course, last but not least, IPM, integrated pest management. We're not going to go through every little thing. We're going to go through most of the common ones. With the the national everybody jumping on hemp and growing, we're getting a lot of crossover pests, and I've talked about that before in other videos. So it's going to be impossible to cover every little pest. Plus, I'm not an expert on that. I can just tell you what you'll more than likely come across in an indoor environment. And then third, we will be going over the types of seeds, strain selection for medical needs, and the different types. We're going to go through, each one: regular, photoperiod, feminized, autoflower. Again, depending on what you're doing and what you're shooting for, it depends on which seed you choose. And then we'll go through the various different germination techniques, and we'll go through what we actually use and what has worked for us and what hasn't worked for us. So you'll find a lot of different ones on the internet, but we'll go over the main ones that a lot of people use, and like I said, what has worked for us. And then last but not least, like I said, this is, if I did say, this is a seed to harvest course. And we're gonna cover every little thing: the seedlings, transplanting, veg stage, pre-flower, flower, harvest, and even storage, which is also another you can have a successful grow and then ruin it all if you don't dry it and cure it properly. So we'll go into all of that. And my favorite part of it, this is going to be a little more in depth. We're not going to get into microscope work. If you're going to be getting into making your own teas and experimenting, I recommend you look into purchasing a microscope. You can get a decent one for a decent price. We'll share a link with what we use, but there's a lot of packaged and store-bought compost teas you can use until you understand what you're doing, if you don't want to experiment and just guess. We're going to go into vermicomposting, making your own worm bins, the different styles of worm bins, the different types of worms. Going to cover mainly African night crawlers, and of course the red wigglers, which are more for composting. And then also we're going to go into making and sourcing your own inputs. These are everything from, if you're already gardening, there's several root crops. There's several crops that you can actually ferment and use The tops, like your radish tops, they hold nutrients. Cucumbers hold nutrients. They contain a lot of potassium, a lot more than a banana, believe it or not. So we'll go through all that. It's not necessarily a natural farming class. It is more of using what's local and what you can get your hands on and what's cheap. This is all about people with limited incomes and mobility issues, and making things as easy and cheap as possible without sacrificing quality. But we'll also go into biochar, and like I said, talk about making your own inputs, fermentations, and we'll go into the manures and bokashi composting, which is really a good tool to have if you got limited space and don't have those areas for those big compost piles and stuff. All right, that's a quick overview of everything. We will we also have another more in-depth class for people who want to go a little bit further, and we'll be talking about that more in the future. But we're going to work on this and get this up, and hopefully it will save a lot of the time and money and frustration for those folks out there looking to where to start and wanting to start from the bottom. It's there's a lot of misinformation out there and a lot of bro science. Of course, you'll hear that a lot, and this is just what's worked for us. And it's all been trial and error. Nothing's new here. This is all stuff that we've researched and applied in our garden, so we're not reinventing the wheel or anything like that. But we hope to steer you in the right direction. All right, you guys have a great evening, and we will talk to you later.